Okay, so if you've spent the last few years maybe scrubbing local news channels from your streaming lists or, just getting more and more frustrated by what they do put out.
Yeah, you're definitely not imagining things.
Right. It feels like a massive shift is happening. And today we're diving into some really crucial source material that looks squarely at the decline of local TV news. It asks a pretty tough question. It does. Basically.
Okay.
What on earth happened to those local TV news stations? The ones we used to see as like the absolute pillars for community information.
Yeah.
The go-to source.
And the sources we're looking at suggest this isn't just a slow fade. It's more like a structural collapse driven by big changes in content, tech, and, well, money.
And these sources, they don't really pull any punches, do they? They talk about local affiliates, these places that were once the trusted voice in town, now sometimes being seen as, and this is a quote, second-tier outlets.
Yep.
Accused of focusing way too much on sensational stuff, or what the material calls filler content, instead of, meaningful journalism. That's really the core charge we need to unpack here.
It absolutely is. And like you said, our mission today is to kind of break down these findings into, well, three main areas the research points to.
Okay.
So first, there's this crisis in content quality and just general credibility.
Mm-hmm.
Second is the audience basically leaving, driven by better technology elsewhere.
Right.
And third, this growing kind of painful disconnect with local advertising money.
Okay, let's start with that content crisis, because the sources argue it's really the root cause, isn't it? This idea that credibility started dropping because they fundamentally decided to, step away from the tough, meaningful reporting.
Yeah, they stopped covering the things that actually hold local power accountable.
But why? What's behind that decision?
Well, what's interesting here is digging into the why. It seems to be a mix, budget cuts, definitely, but also corporate pressure. Investigative teams, they cost money, serious money. And as more local stations got snapped up by these big national holding companies, the main goal shifted. Less community service, more profit maximization.
So when the budgets get tight,
the complex stories are the first to go. Those that take weeks, maybe months of deep digging. So you end up with like a lot more police blotter stuff, maybe some fluffy features, easy wins.
But the source material really digs in on how they handle politics and policy issues. It's not just about lacking resources. It says they actively sidestep accountability. They choose to ignore the messy stuff.
Precisely. The critique is that these local broadcasters often prefer safer, less controversial segments. Why? Because deep, challenging stuff can be polarizing and, again, expensive.
So instead of explaining, say, a complicated local budget crisis or maybe some really entrenched zoning problem.
Right. They just boil it all down to sound bites. The research points out that they often don't give viewers the context they actually need.
But why actively avoid it? Is it just trying not to make viewers angry? Or is there something else making them shy away from complexity?
It's often transactional,
Yeah.
Local news needs access. Access to the mayor, the school board president.
Access to big local businesses for ad revenue.
Exactly. So if a local station really challenges a powerful player in town, they risk losing that access. No more interviews, maybe fewer ad dollars. So the material suggests this avoidance comes from wanting these non-confrontational stories, which means they often look like they're fundamentally unwilling to question why, as the sources put it, some groups underestimate the public's awareness of what's really going on.
They're betting viewers just want simple, easy stuff, even if it's not really relevant.
That seems to be the bet, yeah. Even if it's functionally irrelevant to people's lives.
So if you, the listener, you're faced with this kind of low-quality, surface-level content that actively avoids the real pressures in your city, what do?
You leave. You find something else.
Right. And that core problem, the lack of depth, the lack of accountability, that's what really sets the stage for the audience just walking away.
And this is such a pivotal moment because once those local stations kind of gave up their role as the main source for depth and accountability, their other big advantage of timeliness, it just completely collapsed. Thanks to modern tech.
The technology piece.
Yeah. The sources detail how the modern viewer no longer needs traditional broadcasts for basic info. The tech simply made the old way obsolete.
That's where the competition really shakes up, isn't it? I mean, think about the old model. You wanted the weather forecast.
Oh, yeah.
You had to tune in, wait through the theme music, sit through what the sources call small talk and personality-driven chatter.
All that banter.
And just wait for that 1 minute about your area. It was like you were forced to consume everything else.
Contrast that with right now, your phone. It gives you incredibly precise, real-time forecasts, tailored to your exact spot, the exact hour you need it.
Probability of rain on my street, basically.
Exactly. The viewer gets control, depth, precision. The broadcast model it's structurally cannot compete with that level of custom info and convenience.
Okay, but what about the human element? Isn't there still some value in having like a familiar face, a local meteorologist you feel you trust telling you the weather? Does pure data totally replace that connection?
That's a fair question.
Yeah.
But the sources seem to indicate that, well, the human element is kind of losing the battle against just superior data in utility. The convenience factor is incredibly powerful.
Okay.
Think of sports. We used to rely completely on the local sports anchors, right? For those super brief, often kind of generic highlight packages at 11 p.m.
Right. You got maybe the final score, one quick clip if you were lucky.
That's ancient history now. Platforms like Max Preps for high school sports or YouTube for pro highlights, they give you everything. Full coverage, multiple angles, replays, deep stats, even fan comments.
And
instantly. And without interruption. So why would you wait until 11 p.m. for a 2-minute summary when you can pull up a 12-minute, maybe ad-free highlight reel of your specific team right now?
Yeah, makes sense.
The depth, the speed, the customization online, it's just made the broadcast format feel redundant for getting that basic information.
So the aha moment here is really critical, I think. The audience isn't necessarily ditching local issues altogether.
No, not necessarily.
They're ditching a delivery method that's fundamentally slower, shallower, and just plain inconvenient compared to digital options.
Exactly. And that tech gap creates this measurable competitive disadvantage.
Right.
Which leads us inevitably to the money, the financial side of things.
Right. If the audience is migrating, especially the younger, more tech-savvy viewers,
the advertisers have to follow. It's that simple. Our sources note that local advertisers are waking up to this critical imbalance. Meaning they're paying these really steep premium prices for traditional TV ads.
Which have always been expensive.
Always. But they're reaching a smaller and smaller fraction of their target market.
Okay, so let's talk dollars and cents. That small local business owner, maybe the insurance agent, the car dealer, what's the realization they're having when they compare TV ad spend to digital ad spend?
They're realizing their money just goes so much further online, dramatically further. And it's not just about reach, it's about measurable results. ROI.
Return on investment.
Exactly. Online platforms, think YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google, they offer tracking like never before. That local business can tell you precisely how many people clicked their ad, went to their website, maybe even bought something.
Compared to buying a 30-second spot on the 6 o'clock news and just hoping for the best.
Pretty much, yeah. Local TV is largely guesswork in terms of impact. Digital advertising offers concrete, granular results, wider reach too, and crucially, the ability to engage, quote, the exact audiences that local TV stations are struggling to retain.
So they pay less to reach the right people, and they get actual proof it's working.
Yes. The market is basically correcting itself, moving away from that inefficient broadcast spending model.
It sounds like a reinforcing cycle then. Poor content quality pushes viewers away.
Technology offers a much better experience.
And then advertisers figure out they're paying way too much to reach a shrinking, less engaged audience they can't even really measure reliably.
You got it. And the data backing this up is, frankly, definitive. One of the most shocking stats cited in our sources comes from Nielsen ratings.
Yeah.
The traditional gold standard for TV measurement.
Yeah.
Nielsen now confirms that Americans are watching, and get this, more content on YouTube in their living rooms than on traditional local broadcasts.
Wait, in their living rooms, not just on phones.
In the living room, on the big screen.
Yeah.
This isn't just about mobile viewing anymore. This is happening in the primary TV viewing space.
Wow. Okay, that single data point feels like the nail in the coffin for the idea that local broadcast still dominates the market.
It really does.
YouTube, a platform built entirely on user content and specialized channels, has actually overtaken traditional local news viewership on the biggest screen in the house. That confirms the huge shift has already happened, doesn't it?
Absolutely. The viewers have voted with their eyeballs, and the metrics prove it. Okay, so let's synthesize this. We've traced the path. Loss of content quality and credibility leads to audience leaving, which then speeds up the exit of advertising money. Now, our sources don't just analyze this. They seem to move towards a pretty pointed conclusion about the future of local media.
Yeah, they pivot. And they direct their message very clearly, community business leaders and advertisers. The argument basically becomes, you folks now hold the power to force real structural change.
How?
Simply by redirecting where you spend your advertising money. So the message is stop funding what the sources call outdated, biased, and low-quality storytelling that fewer people are watching anyway. That's the call to action, essentially. Invest instead in modern, transparent platforms where your audiences actually are spending their time. Platforms where you can measure the results. It's framed as a major power shift, then, by moving their money away from these legacy broadcast systems and towards platforms that prioritize quality and measurability.
The sources argue that these business leaders can, and this is another quote, reclaim control of how local stories are told. It's like the market itself is forcing an accountability that the news outlets failed to maintain on their own.
That's a really powerful idea, that the responsibility maybe for funding good local journalism has shifted away from, public trust and viewer loyalty.
And shifted towards the strategic investment decisions being made by the local business community based on their own needs.
Which leads to a really interesting final thought for you, the listener, to chew on.
Yeah, something to consider next time you're deciding where to get your local news. If the main drivers keeping quality local content afloat are now the advertisers and business leaders making choices based purely on ROI, does that fundamentally change what community journalism even means?
Does it shift from being a kind of public trust
to being purely a marketplace commodity, shaped entirely by who's willing to pay for placement next to it? That's definitely something to mull over as you watch where the ad money flows in your own city.